Can somebody confirm you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you. All right, let me share my screen. Oops, not that. Sorry, my computer's a little slow because it's still converting the lecture meeting. It's only about 82% done. Where the heck is my, there it is, screen so I can share my screen. There, I should be able to see my screen now. Get that out of there. All right, today is May 7th, and we are going to discuss and start the unknown project today, which it's going to be difficult because I haven't gotten that project ready for you, but hopefully I'll get it ready tonight and send it out probably late tonight, early tomorrow, meaning after midnight. But I do need to get that done. Any questions about that? On Thursday, we'll discuss Lab 7 and you'll be, well, not really working on the unknown project, not yet. All right, so let's discuss the unknown project. Let me state that if you get confused on this project, oops, I got the wrong thing here. That's the infectious disease project. If you get confused on this project, you should figure out what you're confused on and ask me a question. Yeah, I did the wrong thing. Where do I have the unknown project? Oh, there it is. I think that's the one I want. This is going to look weird because I need to go into Clark College and ask them, why did this change the background dark and the print white? But the unknown project will be a 75-point lab project where you will be, quote, given a bacteria and you will be running tests to identify it. Now, this class does everything online, so you're not really going to be given a bacteria. What you're going to be given is a number. This number will stand or represent a species of bacteria, and you will run different tests throughout the term to try and identify what species of bacteria your number is. Oh, good. The lecture Zoom page is finished, so now my computer will speed up. Let me go back here. So this, I call it the table of the unknown. It does have another name. What the heck is its name? The unknown species list or unknown list. And yeah, I've got problems with Microsoft. We want to make sure I'm a Clark employee teacher because they don't want to give it to me for free and couldn't verify my account. So the easiest thing to do is just take my laptop into Clark College and then log in from Clark College, and then Microsoft will see that I'm a Clark College instructor, and so it'll do it okay. But the other thing is I can actually take some steps on my own computer and do it, but I haven't bothered to try and figure out how to do that yet. So we'll see. But the point is for you guys, this is the possible species, and there's about 26 of them, I think. A little less, 24 probably. 23, that can't be right. Should be an even number, but it does look like it's 23. Didn't notice that before. And I will give you a number. The number will have no representation to the name. So the number will mean nothing to you, and that's its point. Okay, so you're going to have an unknown species by your number. And then you'll run various tests to identify the species of bacteria. Any questions about any of that? Last term, I actually had two students, I don't know where they got this from, who were making up their own data and running their own tests. And I said, interesting, where did you get this data from? And they said, well, this is an online project. I thought we could just make it up. You cannot make up the data. You're going to request a test. I will look up your unknown number, send me your unknown number, request a test, and then I will send you the results of that test. Like you asked for Cadlace, and your unknown number represents Citrobacter furundi. I'll look up Cadlace is positive, so I'll send you a slide where the results show you the slide is Cadlace positive. Any question about that? All right.
Like, is one test per like a day, or how many tests can you run for us?
If you don't want a penalty, this project assumes you're using dichotomous logic. So you do one test at a time. Now it depends how quickly the test runs for how many tests you can run, let's say in 2 days. Like if you have a test that takes a day or less to run, you could probably get 2 tests in 2 days. However, if you have a test that takes 5 days to run, you won't get one test in 2 days. Is that clear?
Okay, so I do a test and then wait a day, and the result comes back, I could do another test, correct?
Yeah, if the test only takes 2 days,
Okay. Makes
okay, or a
sense.
day to run.
Thank you.
All right. So with dichotomous logic, the point is you'll be asking for one test at a time. And I'll explain dichotomous logic in a little bit, but it's where you, for the beginning, you just have all the possibilities, which are shown over here. And then you run one test, and I'm actually going to give you the first 3 tests. But after that, you'll choose whichever test you run. So I'll give you one of the tests will be the gram stain. And let's say the results are gram positive. So that means you can exclude all the gram negatives, that's these cells here, and then focus in on the gram positives, these cells here. So I'm going to highlight that. And then the next test I give will be the gelatin hydrolysis test. The reason why I give that one is because that test actually is a fairly good test to take, and it takes 7 days for that test to run. So that means if you're following dichotomous logic, you request that test, you're not going to get your results until after 7 days of incubation. After the 7 days of incubation, I'll then send you the results of that test. And so I'll give you that test at the very start also. And let's say it's gelatin hydrolysis positive. That means all of these here are a possibility. All of the negatives are out. Gelatin, it's a gelatin hydrolysis test. But then we have a V here. You come down here, and V means variable. So that means when you run this test on this species, gelatin hydrolysis on Enterococcus faecalis, it'll be variable. Sometimes it'll be positive, other times it'll be negative. So you have to consider that with the positives. So if you got a positive result, all the positives are obviously a possibility, as is the variable. Any question about that? So a variable will fit either a positive or a negative in this case. So it must be considered in both positive and negatives. Any question about that? And this one doesn't have an ND date. An ND means not determined. The reason for not determined is because we don't have information on what test is that? Urease for Enterococcus faecalis, because microbiologists do not run this test urease for Enterococcus faecalis. So we don't have any data. So not determined, you must treat that as a variable. Okay? Any question about that? So that means ND also fits both a negative and a positive possibility. There is another thing that I could mention. Well, that looks like it's got the variable there. Why is that plus and then a variable? Here, let's go with the plus in parentheses. I have to go look that up, why that one is that way. Let me highlight that with a different color, and then I'll try and remember that I want to look at that. Let's go ahead and save that. I don't normally save that, but I want to look that up. Why is that a plus in parentheses and a variable? Now we have a plus in parentheses. The parentheses mean variable, but more likely to be whatever is in the parentheses. For example, parentheses plus is most likely to be positive. If ever I send you a plus result, you can treat that as a plus. Okay? Any question about that? Meaning I will never send you a negative for a parentheses plus parentheses. So you can treat that as a plus. Any question about that? I think that's it for the table. The table does tell you a few things, like a little information about the gram stain, the cell arrangement, the gelatin hydrolysis test, the 6.5% sodium chloride test. So I'm not going to talk about any of these except for the cell arrangement. Let me see if I can do that. It says in gram stains from agar cultures, chains break apart, cells begin to clump, looking like clusters. It is safer to use the cell arrangement only as a guide and not to eliminate any bacteria. If using it, you must grow your cells in a broth culture to prevent chain breaking and cell clumping, meaning we do have a test for cell arrangement. And if you want to know the cell arrangement, you cannot get it from the gram stain. You have to do the cell arrangement test. And we do have that as a test here. Any question about that? All right. Anything else I want to talk about in the test? Oh, here's one other thing. PR, glucose, lactose, sucrose, mannitol, and inulin. All of these, you'll find it on my Canvas page, not as PR glucose or PR lactose, but as PR carbohydrate. What this is a broth, and all of them are the same. There's only one difference, and that is what sugar you put in for the test. So the PR glucose is the same tube, but it has glucose as the sugar. And what you're looking at the the fermentation of the sugar glucose in the PR glucose test. Okay, and then for PR lactose, it's the same. It just doesn't have glucose in it. It has lactose. So instead of on my Canvas page putting up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 or 6 different tests, it's just all under PR carbohydrate test. And I'll show you that right now. It's a little slow, but that's Canvas, which is slow, not my computer. This project is under week 5 lab, where we're going to be discussing lab module 7 on Thursday, but today we're discussing the unknown report and the unknown instructions, which I'm kind of talking about now. There's a link for it there. I think I asked you to read that. There's an example journal, meaning an example of a lab report. You should look at that before you begin writing up your lab report. And there's building a dichotomous game plan. I talked a little bit about that. I'll talk further about that later. There's the unknown species list, which will give you what I'm showing you here. It's best when you go to that in Canvas to actually download the document, because if you look at it in Canvas, it'll be really small and compacted, and you can't see all of it, and you have to scroll over to see it. So the best thing to do would be to download it by clicking that link there. And hopefully this won't download. Oop, it did. Shoot. Well, I'll just delete that now. Well, I'll leave that. I got to look up something and see if that's in there. It probably is, but anyways, that's that. And let's go back. The unknown notes page, I'll talk about that. The grading for the unknown report, I'll talk about that later. What was the point of my showing you this? I was showing you where these things are. Oh, and you scroll down further. Got to open that up now. Here are all the tests you can look at. Like when we come to the gram stain, cell shape and arrangement. This will take a little while to open. It should be opening now, but I'm not sure why it isn't. Let me refresh that. There it is. Gram staining. How we get gram positive, gram negative, do the gram stain, tells you about that. The different shapes and arrangements. In practice, it's difficult to determine whether gram-positive cocci are clusters or chains when viewed in a gram stain. That's because chains are broken apart during the production of a smeared slide, and because cells tend to clump as the water evaporates from a slide when the slide dries, especially when you're streaking off of a solid culture. Therefore, streptococci can often look like they're growing in clusters. So do not rely on the arrangement in the gram stain. We do have a cell arrangement test, and I'll show you that in a minute. But then go through the procedure of the gram stain, which you should know. Some examples of the gram stain. The important part is you can get here how long it takes for each test. Like you can get the gram stain the same day you run the gram stain. For other tests, that's not the case, like the MR test. You should look these up when you request a test to see what's involved and how long it will be before you will get your results. And the MR test, come on. It says it's best to incubate for both 2 and 5 days. But in this one, it says incubate at the appropriate temperature for 5 days, which is what I will do. Because if it's negative on day 2, you have to repeat the test for 5 days to see if it continues to be negative. Because oftentimes on day 2, it'll be negative, and then on day 5, it's positive. And then that will mean that the MR test is positive. So what I do is I simply let it run for 5 days. And if it's negative, it's negative. And if it is positive, it's positive. Okay. The important part is you can look up here and find out how long it'll take. And this test will take you 5 days before you'll get your results. Now, with that stated, I did say it will take you at least the days up here. If you request a test on Friday, and I have already sent out the results for Friday, I may not look at the test on Saturday. I will not look at your request on Sunday. And that means I will not look at it until Monday. So if you request a test on Friday, you may not get any results until Monday. And that's just the problem of the weekend. On some Saturdays, I will be working on this project. I can tell you on Sunday, I will never be working on this project. I have other things to do on Sunday. Any question about any of that? And some days on Saturday, I will not get to it. But generally speaking, I will try and check the test requests about every 2 days. So if I don't get it one day, I'll get it a second day. Any question about that? All right, let's close that down. And this, like I said, down here will show you what all the tests are. Hopefully I've got all the possible tests you can run right here. Where do I have the cellular growth arrangement? There we go. Let's go there just for a little bit. Look at what this test is. Because I want to emphasize you cannot get the cellular growth arrangement from the gram stain. Boy, this is taking a long time to download. Canvas isn't working well today. Boy, let's just download it. There we go. Blow that up. Cellular growth arrangement generally cannot be determined from the gram stain, etc. The cellular growth arrangement that many bacterial cells have are they can have single cells, diplo pairs, staphylo clusters, strepto chains. Other cell arrangements are possible, such as Succinia, 8 cells, tetrads. Note that most species are pleomorphic when we look at the cellular growth arrangement. So sometimes streptococci, some of the streptococci will break apart and will be diplococci, and some of the diplococci will break apart and become single cocci. So use whatever the highest cellular growth arrangement is to determine your report. Grow your bacteria in a liquid, a broth culture, for a day or two. This will help the cells from sticking together. Then make a slide from the broth culture, gently smear 3 to 5 loopfuls of broth on the slide. Be very gentle so you don't break the chains apart. Allow the slide to air dry. Heat fix by placing it over a heat source. Stain the cells with any simple stain. Rinse with distilled water gently. And then blot with bibulous paper. Look at the cells under the microscope. Right there, that looks like a streptococci. And this is another, oh, that's actually not, that's a diplococci. Right there is a diplococci. Blow this up. Can't blow it up there. Yeah, there's a diplococci there and there, and there and there and there and there. That's several diplococci put together. This is a streptococci. So there's two diplococci stuck together. That looks like a singlet. That looks like a singlet. But this is diplococci. Any question about any of that? Boy, I hope I didn't shut down my webpage.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So, if I'm hearing this correct, we can only have one test going at a time, right?
If you're following dichotomous logic, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so you can read about the introduction, the rationale. You will demonstrate the ability to apply basic scientific principles in solving a microbiological problem. And you're going to use the scientific method. Furthermore, you're going to be using dichotomous logic on this project. You'll demonstrate an ability to effectively communicate with your report. You'll have to have effective time management, organization, and study skills. You're going to virtually streak for isolation of your culture. I'm going to give you, quote, in theory, a broth culture, and this is going to be done all virtually. So you just virtually streak. You'll virtually perform aseptic technique with your stock culture, and you will make a test request, such as you'll request the gram stain, and you're going to pretend like you're virtually doing the gram stain, but in reality, I will do the gram stain and I will send you the results. And then I will get you the results, which will be all virtual, meaning I'll send a picture. You'll virtually collect and evaluate the data in a logical manner. Everything will be done online. And then you're going to present your work in your daily lab notes and then compile them all together in your unknown project report. Any question about any of that? All right, project format. This project is going to use dichotomous logic. Dichotomous logic involves a series of yes, no, true, false questions. Shotgun logic is where you're applying a whole bunch of tests at one time. You're just shooting a shotgun, hoping to get the correct results, or one bullet hits the bird that you're shooting at, something like that. Or if you're shooting at a flock, that you're hoping to get the duck and not the other birds in the flock. That would be shotgun logic. You'll get a deduction if you're using a logic other than dichotomous logic. You'll be writing up your daily lab notes. You must write detailed notes for your activities done on that day, what observations were done on that day, your thoughts. You should, at the very least, put in your species under consideration. So you must document all your activities. And you'll look at your unknown notes pages, which will be where you document all your daily notes, to write up your unknown report, because you cannot trust your memory. to try and recall what was done and what the results were on a previous experiment or experiments. The project will be worth 75 points. In your unknown report, it must be submitted online, obviously. You must have a paragraph writing about the microorganism you think you've identified. Please use 12-point font. Lower than 12-point font, I'll have a hard time reading it. As you notice, I wear glasses, and you'll get a much stronger graded paper if you make it so I have a hard time reading it. Your daily, just make it 12-point font and everything will be good. Your daily description should include what test you ran, what day you ran it, the information you hope to gain from these tests, the observations you made from the test, that's the result, as well as your conclusions. That's the interpretation of your results for the test. You should not omit any data to make your project look better. Drawings, photos, and tables are very helpful. They are not required, with the exception that you must have a table or a figure outlining the steps you used, meaning the test you used to identify the species as the species you think it is. But if you do include photos, drawings, tables, they're very helpful. And I will send pictures to you of the tests. So all you need to do is copy those and put it in your lab report. Like I said, that's not required, but it is helpful. Each report must have the day that you did the test. Well, let me show you an example of that. You don't need to put the time because this is an online class, but in the olden days when I taught this class in the lecture and in the lab, meaning in person on campus, there would be different possibilities for the time you ran the test. You were allowed to attend somebody else's lab and come into my lab, for example. And so in that case, you could have 2 tests on the same day because you went to 2 different labs. But in one lab, you could only have 1 test in one lab. And that was just because most students weren't on campus on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, as well as possibly Friday. And so we allowed you to go to other people's labs to run the test, as well as my own lab. But this is an online, and so you can make a test request every day, assuming that you have a test that only takes 1 day to run. What am I trying to show you here? I want you to see an example in the lab report, which I probably should go from here because it'll be quicker. This sample journal was one made by actually a microbiology instructor way back in 2004. And this was done in the lab, not in an online case. Oh, I didn't remember the sample being there, but that's okay. There we go. So day 1, February 3rd, 2004. You should at least have the date. Okay, he doesn't even have the time there, but that's fine. It's probably because he didn't allow people to come to other labs. He had to come to his lab, so that's why it's only 1 date. But that's the point. Put the date there in your lab report. You don't need to do that in your unknown notes because the unknown notes will date it directly itself. And we'll talk about your unknown notes in a little bit. You do not, when you're talking about the test, need to list the step details of the test. For example, if you say the gram test, you ran the gram test, all you have to do is say, I ran the gram test. You do not need to say the step-by-step details of the gram stain. I already know the step-by-step details of the gram stain. Any question about that? You then should give the observations of the gram stain and your interpretation. The observations would be you saw pink cockeye, and your conclusion interpretation would be you have gram negative cockeye. All right, there it is right there, that you have to have in this report a table outlining the processes, meaning the tests you use to identify your unknown. You can do it in a chart or a figure, but most students do it in a table. I'll show you that in a little bit right here. All right, so initially there were all possible species, and then the student did the gram test as gram positive cockeye, and so we labeled all the possibilities right here, from E. faecalis, I'm not going to say them all, to Streptococcus pyogenes. What is that? Something like 8 possibilities. They then did the catalase test. The results of that test were catalase positive. That narrowed it down to 4 possibilities: Micrococcus luteus, Micrococcus varians, Staphylococcus aureus, and Staphylococcus epidermidis. We then did the PR mannitol test. The test was negative for PR mannitol fermentation. So that means it narrowed it down to Micrococcus luteus, Micrococcus varians, and Staphylococcus epidermidis. They then did the PR glucose test. Their test result was A for acid, and that narrowed it down to Micrococcus varians or Staphylococcus epidermidis. They then did the citrate test, and it was citrate positive. That narrowed it down to Micrococcus varians. That means they've now identified their unknown species. It's Micrococcus varians. After you've identified your unknown species, you may run one more confirmation test without penalty. And let's say that they weren't 100% certain about Micrococcus varians and Staphylococcus epidermidis here. And so they run one more test to confirm that it's Micrococcus varians. So they have 2 tests confirming that it's Micrococcus varians. If you've done a 3rd test, you will get a penalty in your grading of the report. And that's because we're also grading you on how efficient you are. And you have 3 tests showing that it's Micrococcus varians. That's not very efficient. We only allow 1 confirmation test where you can confirm that it's Micrococcus varians. And hopefully that will be the case, that the 2 will confirm each other. Any question about any of that? Anyways, this is a table showing the steps the student used to get that their species was Micrococcus varians. Any questions? All right, after the writing up of the data of your lab report and you've identified the species of bacteria, you should then write a paragraph or 2, no more than half a page, on the species of bacteria you have identified. And that's called the microorganism paragraph. Just a description, a short description about some details about that species of bacteria. It only needs to be a paragraph or 2 in length, don't exceed, well, I got there a type page. If you go more than a type page, I will penalize you. And this project is supposed to be, I think, 5 to 6 pages long. Let me look that up. I didn't see that. when going through here. If it's less than that, like 4 pages or less, you will get a penalty. If it's more than 6 pages, you'll get a penalty as well. And where do I have that here? Anyone see that? I think it's supposed to be 5 to 6 pages. That does not include the references. It does not include any pictures or tables you include in the report. Well, I'm not seeing that here. If you see it in there, highlight it. Like I said, I think it's supposed to be 5 to 6 pages long. All right, you should give a literature citation, like where you got the information at the very least from about the microorganism paragraph. So you have to have at least one reference. You may use whatever citation style you want to use. Just be consistent. Don't have one reference, one citation style, another reference, another citation style. All right, I want to remind you, plagiarism is not allowed. Do not simply copy the information in your microorganism paragraph from a source. That would be plagiarizing. I've never had this done, but I suppose if you were to copy it, put it in quotes, and say where you got it from, that would not be plagiarizing. However, I don't want to see that either. Write the microorganism paragraph in your own words, okay? Otherwise, you'll get a penalty, a minimum 5% penalty. If you were to copy the entire microorganism paragraph from someplace and not give a reference from where you got it from, I would probably give you a 0 on this project. And it's not 100 points because the maximum of this project is 75 points. So let me change that there. All right, I do have a grading criteria. You'll be graded largely on your logic on the test that you confirm that you ran. You must use dichotomous logic. I'll talk a little bit more about that. You must explain why you repeated the test. This won't happen because I'm going to be doing it. But like, for example, in the lab, if you were to actually run the test and drop the tube, okay, your results would be suspicious. And so I expect you to put in there saying, I dropped the tube, so I had to repeat the test, and you won't get a penalty for that. Okay. And that shouldn't happen in this online class. You should have a completeness of report. So have as much detail as needed. What tests were run, why you ran the test, what were the possible conclusions of the test, what conclusions did you draw, which species were under consideration after the test. And once again, I have diagrams, photographs. You won't be graded on them. They're helpful as long as they provide information. The test must be complete and accurate. Organization, clarity, and neatness of the daily lab notes in your report will be graded. Each entry should be dated. You must use effective communication, so your report should be free of grammatical errors and spelling errors. It should be concise, easy to read, easy to understand. You must identify your bacteria to get 100%. However, if you don't identify your bacteria, you will be only marked down a little bit. Most of the project will be graded on the logic of your report. You will be graded, I think, a maximum of 10 points on the successful identification of your unknown. Each report must be written in your own words. It'd be really difficult to write one in somebody else's words. This you do not need to work through this example. This is showing you dichotomous logic, going through an example of dichotomous logic. We have an unknown broth containing gram-positive and gram-negative. Day 1, we ran a test. Boy, I'm not seeing this. Why is that not showing? Oh, here it is here. So we have different possibilities: rods, conchi, rods, and let's say, I can't read this because that's so small, but let's say we're only considering the rods here. And then we run another test, PR glucose. So rod and positive, rod and positive, rod and positive, rod and positive. That test didn't help us. PR lactose, also positive. So a rod and positive. These are knocked out because this is not a rod. PR lactose. This test gets knocked out, so it's not organism C, but it is organism either A or E, and G gets knocked out as well from the PR lactose. So that's showing you a case of dichotomous logic. You can go through the example here if you want to help on using dichotomous logic. You don't need to answer any of the questions for this part of the oh shoot, how do I get this out of here? Well, now narrowed it down to 2. That's a little better. Maybe that's 1. There we go. So there are some questions on the dichotomous logic. You do not need to do that. If you're comfortable with dichotomous logic, you do not need to answer the questions. Okay. However, you might want to look at the grading for how the unknown report will be graded before you turn in the report, as well as look at the sample journal for the lab report. Where do I have this grading? Maybe I should talk about dichotomous logic a little more. This will give you how to run dichotomous logic. We have 4 possible species: A, B, C, and D. If we separate A, B, C, and D by their shape, rectangular and not rectangular, we can separate species A and B from C and D. And if it's rectangular, then we know we have species A and B. And then we can do another dichotomous test right here to split species A and B. And that's dichotomous logic, running one time at a time, one test at a time. There's an example here. Rectangular, narrowing it down to A and B, and then the color non-white and white. Let's say it's white, so it's species B. Let's go on about the grading. I'm gonna have that open. Oh, I do. It's just as a picture. That's what I didn't find it. Let me shut that one down. Go back to here. Blow this up. Ah. Too big. About there. So you'll be graded on efficient utilization of resources during isolation. If you have excess media, meaning running a test which didn't help you, if you have 0, you'll get 10 out of 10. If you have one test that did not help you, you'll get 8 out of 10. Okay, so always look up what test you want to run before you request it to make sure the test will help you identify your unknown. Dichotomous logic used, all tests were performed, meaning you use dichotomous logic in all the tests, you'll get, I don't think this grading sheet is right. Yep, it's out of 100. Let me look to see if I got a newer one. There it is. Dichotomous logic, was it used? Dichotomous logic was used, no excess tests, you get 10 out of 10. If you request 2 tests at the same time, you'll get 1 excess test, 8 out of 10. You request a whole bunch of tests at the same time, you'll get 2 out of 10. That's shotgun approach. Any question about that? All right. Were all relevant tests used and you successfully identified your unknown? No tests were omitted. You got 10 out of 10. If there's one test you could have done to identify your unknown, you either ran out of time or you didn't do this test, you'll get 8 out of 10. Several tests, many tests omitted, you'll get 4 out of 10. Were the correct species included at each step, meaning you request a test, you got it back, and then you state all the species under consideration after that test. All species correct, 10 out of 10. One species incorrect, 8 out of 10. 2 to 3 species incorrect, 6 out of 10. Over 5 incorrect species, or you simply didn't include the species, you'll get something like 2 out of 10. Any question about that? Completeness of report. All information is presented, 10 out of 10. 1 instance of missing information at 8 out of 10. 2 to 3 instances of missing information, 6 out of 10. Effective and clear communication. The English, the grammar, the spelling, the punctuation are all good. Excellent, 15 out of 15. A few errors, but logic is understood, 13 out of 15. Some errors, but logic is still understood, 11 out of 15. Some errors and some confuse your logic, 7 out of 15. Lots of errors, the paper is hard to read, 1 out of 15. Species identification, you correctly identified the correct species, meaning you have correctly identified your number as being the correct species. That would be 10 out of 10. If you get your species close within the same group or type, 7 out of 10. Outside the group or type, but the gram stain is correct, you'll get 5 out of 10. And if you identify the species and the gram stain is incorrect, you'll get 0 out of 10. I've never had anyone get the gram stain incorrect, but that's how the report will be graded. Any questions about any of that?
Yeah, I have a question. I know you mentioned that you're giving us 3 tests, which is the gram staining and then 2 other. When you give us our number, are you including those 3 tests or no?
I'm going to try and start this project tonight, in which case you'll be starting the gelatin hydrolysis tonight. and you won't get the gelatin hydrolysis results until next Tuesday, because that test takes 1 week to run. Now, I will do the gram stain, I think, on Sunday for you, but you're not going to look at the results until Tuesday, which is fine. You make the slide, you put it in your drawer, and then you come back and look at it later. And then on Monday, you'll be starting the PR lactose test. And the only reason for doing it that way is that the tests are starting at different times, and theoretically they should be ending at different times. But to make it easier for me, I'm going to just email all of that information to you. And the reason for doing this is this project with only 20 students would have over 100 contact information between the student and me. And so I spoke to the other microbiology instructors and said, how about if I set up 2 or 3 tests at the beginning, and then that will reduce the amount of contact information between each student and me. Because 100 different contacts between the student and me is just way too much for one project. Way too much for me. For you guys, you'll probably have only 5 or 6 contact informations, which that's doable for you guys, but for me, it's just going to be undoable for one project. And so I'm going to give you the first 3 tests, and that will reduce the number of contacts by, I used to know this, is that 60? There's 20 of you. Yeah, that will reduce the number of contacts between you and me by 60. And instead of sending out 60 contacts, meaning a message, I'll send out just one, and I'll send it all together so everyone will get that one. So I will be reducing it by 59. I'll do it one time, but instead of doing it 60 times, I'll do it once. And that makes this project doable. So that's why the very first 3 tests I am going to decide for you. And it's not, they will be good tests to run, but the reason for my doing it is just to reduce the workload of this project in an online class. Any question about that?
No, thank you so much.
All right, and it is doing dichotomous logic because you're starting each test on a different day. And in theory, I should send you the data on 3 different days, but that's just going to make too much work. So I'm sending it all together. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
does it mean like we'll just wait your email or something message?
Yeah, actually, I forgot to talk about something, so let me talk about that. Initially, I will send you an email message containing your unknown number, and I'll send you an email message with the results of the first 3 tests. And I've already told you the first 2 will be the gelatin hydrolysis and the gram stain. And then the third will be the PR lactose. So I'm going to send you an email on that. After that point, all contact between you and I will not be by email. It will be in the unknown notes pages. And let me talk about that now, because I need to talk about that. Forgot to talk about that. You come to the Canvas page under week 5 lab, find the unknown report, scroll down to the unknown notes page. After the first 1 or 2 emails from me, please record all your daily activities, all your test requests for the unknown project here in your unknown notes pages. I will then provide the test results after the appropriate incubation period for those test requests. Record your results, that's your observations for your test results here, and then your interpretation or your conclusions for those observations. And then after that, you should put down all your thoughts. I don't have that in here. Let me add that here. Oh, there it is, there it is there. Record your results and conclusions, as well as the species under consideration. You may also include you don't have to. You must include for full credit the species under consideration, but you may include your thoughts at the time for this project. Everything you do concerning the unknown projects will now be recorded here. Okay, and that means all of the data for the unknown project will be in your unknown notes pages. And that will make all the data in one place. And it'll be easy for both you and I to look up the data and the results. So everything must be included in the unknown notes pages. If you request a test in email, I'll simply email you back saying, I'm not going to honor a test request by email. Please put your test request in your unknown notes pages so that everything in this project will be in one place. And then if there's a question, both you and I can look it up and easily find it, the information. If it's in email, I won't find it. Okay, I'll just guarantee you, I get so many emails, there's no way for me to ever look up something from weeks ago. Okay. And it'll be very difficult for you guys to find it, depending on how much emails you get. So put it in your unknown notes pages. And it's telling you what should be in your unknown notes pages. Your unknown notes pages will be graded. It will count the same as a lab. So you have 10 lab projects, not including the lab 00 and lab 1, because that's half a lab project, or 2.5 points. So this will count for 5 points, which isn't much, but every point does count for your final grade. Any question about that?
So are we just submitting a new document every time we need to run a test, or how's this gonna work?
Very good question. You guys, you won't have a spread grader here, or it might be down here. You won't have a link to that. I'm an instructor, so I have that. You guys will have, I think, upload or something like that for uploading a document. In your unknown notes pages, you can upload an infinite number of pages. Don't do an infinite number, but you can upload as many as you want, is my point. Do not put your information in the comments, because for 2 reasons. First of all, if you put your information in the comments, I will put my information in the comments. Like if you request a test, I want it in your document, it'll show here, and I will give you the results in a comment. And if you have comments and I have comments, there'll be too much, and it'll be very difficult to see all the comments and scroll through them. So leave the comments for me. I will put the information in your unknown notes page as a comment. And generally, all I'm going to do is add the document for the results for the test you requested as a comment. You guys should put all your information in a document, and you can submit as many as you want, and you have a upload button here or down there for doing that, including if you put comments, put your comments in your document. Do not put it in the comment section. If you put it in the comment section, I'll tell you to remove it, and then I'm going to delete your comment. Okay? So don't put anything in the comment section. Leave that for me. Put any comments in the thing. Oh, and another thing, when you put a test request, please put it as the last thing in your document, because that's where I'll be looking for your test request. I'll go through at least every other day, except for Saturday and Sunday, looking through the unknown notes pages, looking at the bottom of your document for a test request. I will not read every document every other day. And so if you put it in the middle of your document, I'll have a hard time finding it, and I'll guarantee I will not initially find it if it's in the middle of the document. If you put it at the top of the document, I will find it because I can see the top of the document when I first open the page. But I'm asking you to put it at the bottom of the document because that's where I will scroll to look for your test request. Any question about that?
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Can we put them all in one file and just update that file to submit it? Or do you want us to use a new file, like a blank page, to make it easier for you for new things added?
You can do it either way. If you put it all in one document, meaning you have your first and you let's say it's let's see, May 14th. Okay, you have your information on that, and then 2 days later, May 16th, you can then take what's on May 14th and put it to the top of your page on May 16th. But you should date it May 14th for that day, because on Canvas, when you put a document here, it will be dated up there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. But if you put it in one document, you'll have to put the date in there in the document, which is fine. And an advantage of doing that, if you do that, putting everything in an updated document, so the updated document gets bigger and bigger, you will have everything together. And then if you write your unknown notes page in a formal style, you can just copy your unknown notes page and then largely use that for the day-to-day activities of your lab report. You must write your unknown notes page in a formal style to do that. The unknown notes page may be written in a formal style or an informal style, but your document, your unknown report, must be written in a formal style. Does that make sense? So
Yes, it
that's
does.
one advantage for doing it in an updated document where you're just making it larger. You're adding things to the document. Okay. It'll make your unknown report easier to write up. The disadvantage is, especially if you write in an informal style, is if you do in an informal style, it'd probably be easiest just to do a document each time you have a test request or you submit your results. But either way, because I can go in here and look at the different documents. How can I do that? Let me shut down the share. I'm going to go to an older paper, then I can show you. Previous term, but I got to remove the grade because you guys can't see that. All right, share my screen now. I remove the grade. So this student submitted a document on August 7th, August 20th, and August 25th. This one is August 25th. And let's see, it looks like the start of this is the data from August 5th, which she doesn't have dated there. She's got August 20th. Why is that? Oh, August 7th is she's only got the unknown number. And then August 20th, she got the results from the 3 lab tests that I gave her. And she's only got 3 documents here. This might not be a good example. She did have another one, but she never added the document. She did have a test request on the 25th. And the point is 820. It's the data from 820, which isn't correct. She requested that test on 820. But that came from 825. Don't ask me why she did that, but that's all right. And this, I'm going to look here anyways, not here. But that should be the 25th, because she got the data on the 25th. And then she made another test request here. Any questions about that? The student is kind of doing both. Some of them are independent, but she does have this one where she got 2 days together. All right, let me stop the share and I'll put the grade back on that one. Any questions about the unknown notes pages or anything else about this project? All right. If there's no further questions, I will see you on Thursday.
One more question.
Uh-huh.
So all each of the students will have like a known number.
Yeah, I'm going to send them an unknown number.
So
It'll represent one of the species of bacteria.
okay.
Okay.
So that's the bacteria that I need to identify.
Yep.
Okay. So in the whole project, it's only one unknown number.
Yeah, I'm only going to give you one species to identify.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. I might just send everything together in a week, but I might send you the unknown number in a separate email. You can't do anything with it, so that's why I might send it just all together. Okay? Is that a problem?
No, that's all right.
All right.
I have some clarification. So our notes and our report will basically have the same information, right, for the collection of data that we have?
It may not be quite the same depending on how you write your unknown notes, but it could be very similar. Could be the same, in fact, if you write your unknown notes pages very formally. But it could be the same. But it
Okay,
doesn't have to be.
so because we're not actually running the test, we're on our actual report, we don't have like data per se for,
No, I'll send you the
Exactly.
data, but I'm
Okay.
going to be running the data. Is that what your question is?
I guess so.
Yeah, I will be sending you pictures of the data, the observations. And then you have to write up your results of those observations, meaning saying the tube is yellow or something like that, and then make your interpretation. The test was positive.
Okay, that
Okay,
makes sense. Thank you.
all right. Anything else? All right, I think that's it.